but life happens, and that's the way things roll. So, we're going to talk about self-compassion this week, and how that can help us, and how it helps us to get more things done, really, get more done. And it isn't about adding to our to-do list. In fact, it's about becoming more discerning. So that's what we're going to talk about. So, what is self compassion in the first place? And this is important. It's important that you understand the definition of self compassion, because from there, we can step out, um, to sort out things in our lives the way we want it. So it's being defined as being more understanding and kind towards ourselves. So instead of ignoring our own pain or beating ourselves up with that inner critic, we show ourselves some kindness and some understanding, and that's important. That's where we go from. So that's the basis from which we go from. So how can self compassion help? I should say, we're brilliant at being or being compassionate, I should say, towards other people. But how can we become more self compassionate, and how can we allow that then to help us? Because it is really good at allowing us to handle difficult or difficult situations or difficulties that we might arise in our life easier. It doesn't mean that the difficulties go away. The ups and downs of normal life doesn't just vanish. We're just more self-compassionate. But we can also try and minimize what we're actually experiencing as well by, being, as I said, being more discerning. But it can help us cope better with those difficulties. We become better at enjoying life and celebrating our successes. We review our idea around failure or mistakes, and we see them as learning opportunities instead of using them to beat ourselves up. So, in other words, we become more open minded about ourselves, but also more open minded about the world around us, and be more tolerant of other people. And self compassion is a skill, and it's a skill that has been shown that if we can practice it, if we can practice this skill, it can help rewire our brain, and that's important. Because that rewiring occurs in multiple regions in the brain: our empathy, our understanding, our emotional regulation. So you're better at handling your own emotions. Again, that's when you can take that step back emotionally, you know, difficulties, you can handle them in a much clearer manner. Your brain becomes clearer, and you're not being held hostage by the emotional takeover that can happen when something happens. And it can also increase the positive emotion. So, as I said, we can enjoy and celebrate life a bit more for ourselves. But this is a skill that we need to practice, and we need to practice a little bit every day to learn it and to try and get better at it. So how you would do that would be, I've talked about this before, would be meditation, working on deleting your negative thinking, setting healthy boundaries with yourself. That's equally important, and that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today, is around boundaries with ourselves and others, and then forgiving ourselves as much as if we want to. And forgiveness of others is optional, but we have to start forgiving ourselves. So, as I said, the benefits there can include, benefits of self compassion can include being able to quieten the mind down. So this will help you practice, that inner critic, and deepen your understanding of yourself, and in building your resilience, as I said, and being more empathic towards yourself as well as others. And this will then mean you're less likely to procrastinate, catastrophize, etc. It'll usually lessen your fear of failure. In fact, you'll see the failures as opportunities to learn. There won't be a failure. There'll be an opportunity to learn. So you're rewording that in your brain, how you actually see it. And then your stress and your anxiety, of course, is going to come down if that's a problem for you. Because we're using good self care practices which I've talked about before. So what has all this got to do with, getting more things done? It all comes down to, as I said, the boundaries, the healthy boundaries. And building healthy boundaries with ourselves. We have to come from a healthy place within ourselves first, and then setting a healthy boundary with other people is one way that we cultivate. As I said, there's other ways as well, about your negative thinking, about your meditation, your basic self-care, as I always harp on about. But, have a look at, setting those boundaries with yourself. Because when we lack self-compassion, we also tend to have skewed boundaries with ourselves and in all our relationships, not just intimate relationships. And our personal boundaries are based on our values and our morals. And that involves deciding who and what you're going to participate in. Learning to say no is going to be key here. Whether that's to yourself, and that's important because sometimes we're the biggest offenders of breaching our own boundaries because we're not saying no to ourselves, or whether that's with others. And then as you set the boundaries, you're going to feel more empowered. And as a result, then you will become more focused, more discerning, as I said. You'll be more focused on, what you do and why you're doing it every day. So that's important. And the key, as I said, is going to be focusing on the right thing for you right now in your life. What do I need to be doing? Making sure you're focused on what needs to be done. One task at a time, not a million tasks. It doesn't matter if you've got a long to-do list, as long as you're only focusing on one thing at a time. Because if you're constantly trying to rush from one task to another task to another task, it's just not going to be focused on them. They're just not going to be done as well as they could be. And you're going to be beating yourself up, and that critic is going to come up. You're not going to be compassionate towards yourself, in other words, about what you actually can get done in a day. What's realistic? So when you become more aware of what the right tasks are for you, or the right things and the right people you want to be with are for you, then your focus is going to shift, and you're going to be focusing on the right thing for you at this moment in time in your life. So awareness, as I always say, awareness is always going to be the first step. So get clarity around what you need to focus your attention on and how much time you're going to give to it. So some questions that you might like to ask yourself, and they're in the blog, so you can go check out the blog. It's it's in the description below, and you can go have a look at those. There are questions in there that you can ask yourself, and one question is, does the task serve me? Is it still serving me to do this, in my life, in my work, or not? You can substitute that word task for goal. Does this task really serve me? Does this goal really serve me anymore or not? Sometimes we have to get realistic and put goals in what we call a parking lot. So they're not gone, but they're parked. But a goal you had at 20 is not going to be maybe relevant to you now in your 40s or 50s. So sometimes we gotta think it up. Am I still chasing the dream it's unrealistic? And that can be hard. So we need to have a little bit of compassion, and ask you, why am I chasing it? Why am I chasing it? What is it about that goal that I really want? Again, you're bringing your focus to the right thing there. Another question you can ask here, is it my task to complete it? Am I supposed to be the one to do it? Am I supposed to do this task? Is it mine to do in the first place? Can I delete it? Maybe that means handing it back to the person who's really responsible for it. Can I delegate it so I can make better use of my time? The other thing about problems, if you've got a problem and you need to look at it, am I focusing on the solution right now, or am more caught up in the problem? Because sometimes when we get caught up, as I said, with the emotions, and then our thinking kicks in as well, and maybe you're catastrophizing, or another cognitive distortion has kicked in up here, You're so caught up in the problem, you're not actually seeing the real facts of the problem. So therefore, you're not focusing on the right thing. You're not focusing on the proper solution. In other words, I'm allowing myself to get distracted. So examples there would be mindless TV or activities, instead of focusing on what I need to do. So, TV, gaming, checking social media, checking the emails. So, we really have to get this is setting a boundary with ourselves, but we have to get more focused on that and saying, okay, I got to have set times for checking my emails. I got to, set times for checking social media. And it is hard, but that's a boundary, because otherwise you're allowing them to distract you mindlessly sometimes. I've got 5 minutes. Oh, I'll just go off and surf the net. And it's more than 5 minutes. 30 minutes later, you look up, oops, and you've forgotten the task you were working on. So it's important. Am I really focusing on what I need to get done, or am I allowing mindless activities to distract me from the task at hand? The other thing I'd say to you here is remember that procrastination, catastrophizing, perfectionism, or any other forms of cognitive distortions that I've talked about before are forms of distraction. And they will all impact on our ability to focus on one task at a time properly. And they rob you of time, and they rob you, rob your attention and your energy. So we have to become more aware of that. So getting on to some tips, watch the worry train. That's what I'd say to you here. And it's hard to do when you're feeling stressed, you're anxious, you're tired. You can get caught up in worrying about the future, the past, possible outcomes, and always tend to be in a negative way. So this all leads us down that, distraction route instead of straight ahead where we need to go. And slipping into old habits that focus on, focus on other things rather than what needs to be done, and finding the right solution to a task or a problem that we have. So we really need to try and start bringing back the focus there, the worry, drop down the worry. So this is where your meditation is going to kick in here. It's going to help you in a big way. 3-minute breather. Get up and use up those extra stress hormones, anxiety hormones. Get up and use them up, move about even for 5 or 10 minutes. Then come back and focus on the task at hand, or focus on what needs to be done right now. It doesn't matter how small the task is. Get yourself back to doing, maybe it's not the task you walked away from, but maybe it's just doing a simple 5-minute task to get the momentum going again. Keep it small, keep it simple, and then just do it. You can make a list that might help you there of 5 or 10-minute tasks that you would do on a regular basis that can get you going again. And I know this is easier said than done. I know this is, especially at the start, it can be easier said than done, especially at the start, because the distractions are a habit. Surfing the phone, surfing the net, checking emails every 5 minutes, allowing those ding dings to come up on your laptop or your tablet. They're distractions, almost like Pavlov's dogs. We're trained to the sound of the bell. So the ding ding comes up and you're automatically, instead of focusing on what you need to do, it's a habit. That's all it is, and you need to break the habit. And they cost us so much more than just our time. Because, once we get distracted like that, it's never just the amount of time that we spend on it. It actually costs us longer, about 23% longer, than to refocus back on the task we were doing and get back on track. So it's important you recognize that, because it takes a little bit longer for your brain to kick in and back on track from what you were distracted by. And of course it can lead to a negative cycle, which is a trap. We've talked about this before, triggers, response and avoidance patterns. So it's important that you become aware of that. And that's another point I'd like to make here, is like, what's your triggers? what's your responses like, your emotions, your thoughts, what are they kicking in? What then is your avoidance pattern here? Because that's trapping you in the negative cycle. And if you want to break the habits, you've got to become aware of that. How is it affecting you? So, you've now gone from one thing distracting you. So you got distracted maybe by an email, but then you're responding to it. But you're not just responding to that email. You could be responding emotionally. You could be getting, oh, it's the boss, and your anxiety or your stress levels are going up. It could be then that you avoid it. You go into procrastination mode. So you got to remember that it's gone from one piece distracting you to maybe a full blown avoidance pattern and a negative cycle, because you get up, you walk away from your desk, you start procrastinating, you start worrying, your anxiety goes up, and it goes up and up and up. When in fact the task you needed to do was only 5 minutes long, or only took you 10 minutes or 20 minutes or half an hour, whatever it is, it's quicker than you think. But we procrastinate, or we become so caught up in perfectionism, etc., that we've entered into this trap, this negative cycle, that takes up even more of our time and more of our attention. So we need to become aware of, what's trapping us, what this trigger response and avoidance pattern is, in order to change it. And when we become aware of it, then we come back to self-compassion. We come back to say, okay, this is what I do. I'm trying to change things up. I can accept this is where I am right now. And that's important. We need to bring that self-compassion into that acceptance stage, in order to help us change the pattern. You can't just go from awareness to action, because then it's reacting. You're not being proactive. You need that acceptance in the middle. So, come back and focus on the task. And over time, with the help of the self-acceptance, and the fact that you're becoming aware of, okay, these things, I'm triggered by this. Maybe it's that email, as I said, turn off the emails, those notifications. Only check them at set times, not 5 minutes before you go home, by the way. And be more compassionate about yourself, that you are being triggered. And then even in hindsight, you will change, and you become more focused on, okay, how can I minimize these triggers? What was it that triggered me in the first place? So you're raising your awareness around those triggers. And go back to the questions I had just posed about the tasks and whether they're serving you or not, whether you can delete them or delegate them. Go back to those questions I asked. And see, do they help with that? Other things that you might want to consider to help you bring more focus would be to use the top priorities rule, top 3 priorities rule. So you only have top 3 priorities a day. Now, they have to be realistic. You can actually only have them as a top priority if you can accomplish them in that day. So they have to be realistic. Again, you're being compassionate with yourself and saying, I only have X amount of times a day. That's not going to change. That's a reality. I can only get so much done. So if I don't want to enter into, the procrastination, the catastrophizing, or the cognitive distortion, or fall into a trap and set myself up for failure, I have to make those priorities manageable. I have to really work on making them manageable. And yes, they will work towards your goal or your project, whatever it is, but they have to be able to be done in one day. This teaches us, that we can't take on too much, and we all are guilty of doing that, I think. Particularly people that maybe have perfectionism, people who are codependents, and that we do tend to take on too much. And we're being unrealistic. We're not being very compassionate towards ourselves when we do that. So, we have to recognize that taking on too much is actually self-destructive, because it does set you into a trap. It does set you up for failure. And it's not very productive in the long run. You're better off breaking the tasks down, that the goal or the project or whatever is down into small, manageable priorities for each day, and try and only set 3 3 different ones for that day. Um, the other one, as I said to you, do yourself a favor and eliminate as many distractions as you can. So you might need to, get a notebook and start, or keep a record on a Word document or something, somewhere you can see it and say, oh, this is distracting me, and see where the pattern is of what's distracting you. Because you want to create an environment that sets you up for success, but also sets you up for being more focused and more on task to help you get something done. So, as I said, turn off the emails, turn off notifications from the social media, allocate time for checking your social media or your emails. That make your space as clutter free as possible, and so make sure then too you have everything you need to get the task done already there before you begin, so you're not going searching through somewhere, or you're not rooting through files on your computer trying to find what you need to send an email that should have only taken 2 minutes. So make sure that you have what you need before you begin the task. Create a focus zone is what I'm talking about here. That's what you need to do. Create a focus zone. So wherever you're working, whether it be in the kitchen, whether it be in the office, if you're cleaning a room, whatever it is, make sure you have your tools. Make sure, you bring it down that yes, I can focus on this task. I can get it done. The task takes me 5 minutes, takes me 10 minutes, 15, 20, whatever it takes, get it done. And that's your focus time, and you're not distracted by anything else. The other thing, maybe a bit more for office work, or if you're studying or that, would be maybe to time block. So again, one task, generally, a small task, something you can get done within 25 minutes is a time block. And then you take a 5-minute break. So it could be a similar amount of small tasks, maybe 2 or 3 minutes each over the 25 minutes, but they're the same. So it could be a bunch of emails you're sending out. So similar tasks could also go into that 25-minute block. And you would do that over the course of 2 hours. So it's a 25-minute block of focusing on what you need to get done, 5-minute break, and then after 2 hours you take a longer break. So that roughly coincides with maybe a tea break or your lunch. And then the main point though here I'm trying to make is, during that 25 minutes you're only focused on one task or a bunch of smaller similar tasks. So one task at a time, preferably. Watch for time gaps. So if you are doing this, or if you've got time to spare, watch for time gaps. Because we all do it. I've got 5 minutes, I've got 2 minutes, I've got 3 minutes, I'll just check the social media. And we can get lost surfing the internet. We can get lost on social media, as I said. So you're better off having maybe lists of 5, 10 or 15-minute jobs to hand that you would do regularly, that need to be done, or that need to be done that week, and get that done. Get one of those off your list. You're going to feel more productive. You're going to feel, something was done. The other thing was, never be afraid to delegate, even at home. Yes, the kids and your partner won't get it the way you do it. They won't do it the way you do it. They won't get it right the first or second time, or even maybe the 10th time. But you're giving them life skills. So, let them do it. Allow them to help at home. In work, don't be taking on somebody else's responsibilities. Hand it back. Is there one thing in your own list that you could ask somebody else to do? Are you not delegating to your team enough? Look at your list and now go and ask that person. They can do the job. Go and do it and let it go. Letting it go is going to be the hardest part. But we have to do it. There's only so much time in the day. You're only one person, and if this is to do with a job and it's not your own business, well, at the end of the day, that's still going to be running, but you'll be gone, either through burnout or for maybe illness or something. So you have got to be realistic here. Try to keep a distraction log, as I said. Remember, if you're not aware of it, you can't change it up. So jot down any distractions, and then, as you become aware of them, you can use them in the review process. I'm going to talk about that in a second. So reviewing generally means at the end of your day, you can take 5 minutes and just what did I get done, what did I didn't get done, what went well, what didn't. Check your distraction log if you noted something, or even if you didn't note it, maybe write it down now. Oh yeah, I was doing that task and I got, or that job or whatever it is, or I was working on that piece of the project and I got distracted. Or maybe you find it really boring to do that job and you allow the distractions to kick in a bit more. So, by reviewing it, you can say, well, what could you do that might help next time to make it less boring or have a less distractions, or so you're setting yourself up for success rather than failure. And rather than beating yourself up, you're using the review process to learn how to change things up for yourself. And then the most important thing about a review is rewards. I've talked about rewards and treats before. There's a link to that through the original blog to go with this. So go check out that, where I talk about how to use rewards and treats, particularly when you want to change a habit. It's very important that you do that. So we need to do the review process. And finally, you've got to remember, self-compassion is a skill. It's a skill we need. It's also a habit. And all those distractions and they are habits as well. And it takes time to break them, and it takes time to put them in place. So reviews and practice will help cement the new habits in place, but it'll also help you break the old ones. And it'll also help you keep your focus on the right things. Particularly if you're doing a quick few minute review at the end of the day, and maybe do it at the end of the week or at the end of the month. It keeps you focusing on what you want to get done. Am I focusing on the right things? Is it mine to do? Can I delegate this? Can I hand it back? You're always bringing it back. So now you're finding time when you do that, you're reducing down that never-ending to-do list, I hope. And you're freeing up some more time to be with the people and do the things you want to do. So time for self-care, which is very important when it comes to self-compassion. And building that as a skill. Family and friends time. Things you want that matter to you. And this will give you a better life-work balance. And please note, I'm saying life-work, not work-life, because it's about your life. The work helps you with your life. Shouldn't be the other way around. And then this in turn helps you to be more, self-compassionate and even more focused in on what you really want, what really matters to you, and what will help balance your life better for you. So that's it. As always, thank you to those who watch live, and thank you to those who watch on replay here and on YouTube, sorry. And I will of course talk to you next week. Hopefully we'll run on time next week, but it's the summer, so I have to be flexible. Granny is always on call, so that's the way it is. So I will leave it there. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you all shortly.